Hey everybody, I want to thank everybody for sending in all those great questions and letters. I really wasn't expecting this kind of response, but I really appreciate it, and thank you for doing that. And we're going to answer as many of the questions as we can, but unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time with each episode. We want to kind of make it interesting and quick and on to the next. So I got my buddy Nick Diaz over here. Diaz, excuse me.
There you go.
The English version of Diaz is Diaz. So, Nick, what do we got there,
I
buddy?
got a good one here from Craig Puera, who's asking about the differences between a 58, 59, and a 60 Les Paul neck profile and difference in feel, tone, and look.
Well, there's several differences. And on the real ones, the ones that were made in the 50s, there's a couple other things that they didn't really address in the reissues.
Right.
The 58 had the biggest, roundest, most
More
mass
chunky neck, yeah.
to the neck.
Yeah.
And the 59 was kind of the medium neck, which was probably the most popular, but there's some people who like the big neck.
Right.
And then the 60, which I actually like a lot myself,
Me too.
is the thin, flat neck.
Yeah.
And I just feel very comfortable on that neck. So it's all personal preference as far as that goes. The original 58s had a thinner fret. And then by the time they got into the 59s, they went to a little bit wider fret. So that's probably the other biggest difference.
Big difference.
The guitars pretty much are the same. I've had people say, oh, well, the 58s have more red in the sunburst, or it's not true. I mean, I've seen variances on every one of them.
Through all that period.
Through the whole
Yeah.
period, and some were custom ordered.
Yeah.
So, it's not anything in stone. This guitar here is an R9. This is a reissue.
Yeah.
We have a beautiful
Huge.
60 I don't have here. I have it at my house. It's cherry sunburst, thin neck, not a flame like this. A lot of the reissues
That
have
thing's gorgeous.
more
Yeah.
pronounced flame than the original ones.
Right.
But I didn't really think you'd be able to see the difference in the video as far as the thickness of the neck.
Right, it's hard
But you
to
can
tell.
you can
Yeah.
definitely feel it. I mean, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they started out chunkier through that period of Les Paul standards, and I guess they thought it would be an improvement to make the neck thinner, maybe more playable. But I mean, like you said, there's ones from each period that are theoretically the same guitar, but sound very different, play very different, look very different.
Well,
So-
they were thinking by making it a thinner neck that it made it a faster neck necessarily.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
then, as they got into the 60s, on a lot of their models, I mean, they discontinued the Les Pauls, but they ended up in the single cutaway Les Paul ended up as the SG, and then that got discontinued. I'm not sure exactly what went down with Les and Gibson at the time. And but a lot of the other models, after 65, the nut width got really narrow and then got wider. These early ones prior to 65s, early 65 and before, are wide at the nut and even all the way down.
Right.
So that's kind of the biggest thing.
What do you think of the reissues in general, the Les Paul reissues?
The reissues are actually really good, and they're the next best thing to having a real one.
Yeah.
Of course, a real one is the price of a house in a lot of cities, and a lot of people can't afford them.
Because this one you're holding is absolutely drop dead gorgeous. I mean, I know you kind of hand-pick the tops, don't you? Because
I
you
do.
like
I like to. I was a Gibson dealer, but I'm not. So what we do is we go to our friends that are Gibson dealers, and either trade them or try
I know
to
we get calls for, hey, I've got one, it's spectacular, and they always call you first. to
private
see if you
parties
want it.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And some of the guys just know what we like, so
Right.
they make sure and take care of us. So certain weights. I mean, nowadays, everybody's very weight conscious on
Yeah.
the guitars. They like a certain feel to the neck. Also the tops, I kind of like the
Weight
wider
never used to
flame.
be an issue, did it?
No.
Back in the day, it was like a Les Paul. It was a heavy guitar,
Yeah.
and that kind of was part of the whole
Well,
thing.
in the late 70s, 80s, even at the 90s, some of them are what a lot of people refer to as boat anchors.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they still sound terrific. So nothing wrong with those guitars, but a lot of people are, much more inclined to go with a little lighter guitar.
Yeah, and they have weight relief on some of the new ones and chambered bodies and.
The weight of the guitar, also adds to the chemistry and the denseness of the wood.
Of course, yeah.
So each one of them has its own thing, and we're trying to, serve everybody. So one guy wants one thing, one guy wants the next. So
There's a bum for every seat, right?
apparently there is. So,
Okay.
and what else we got?
Okay, Robbie from Arizona wanted to know, he was talking about J200s and SJ200s and how that whole thing started with the top of the line Gibson acoustics, which we've got a couple of here.
Well, let's go to that. So Gibson in the late 30s, a number of the cowboy stars wanted like these big fancy guitars.
Yeah.
And it's just, they wanted something that really made a statement. And they have this beautiful pick guard. This is what we call an open mustache bridge.
Right.
That was the earlier style bridge. This one here is very early with individual bridge pieces.
That's
here.
crazy,
It's almost
yeah.
like the predecessor of the Pneumatic. It doesn't
Yeah.
adjust back and forth, but it's really cool. This one here is rosewood. And this is the very first ones were rosewood. They also did a mahogany version, which was an SJ100.
Right.
And that's really cool also.
That's
In fact, we
gorgeous.
had one that was made for this Cowboy Star Crash Corrigan that I had years ago. And that was a mahogany SJ100, but it had features of the 200. What's cool about this one is this is rosewood. This has the fancy guard, has the open mustache bridge, the individual saddles, script logo, as you can see up on the top. The thing about the SJ200, again, it was called the Super Jumbo 200.
Right.
And this one here has an ebony fingerboard, and this one was made for a cowboy star named Don Weston.
Right.
And I got this guitar from Don's family after Don passed away. Don actually was Gene Autry's guitar teacher.
Huh. Really?
And he was a very good player, and he was a cowboy star himself, and he had his own kind of place where he instructed cowboys as to,
How to
playing
look good in
guitars
films.
and, yeah,
and
all
what
that.
to play, yeah.
And, told them kind of what to do. So notice this gorgeous pick guard.
Ah.
Then they went from this to this other Sunburst one.
Okay.
And this is also an SJ200. You notice the same kind of pick guard, open mustache bridge, later with the single piece going here on the bridge. This one, though, they went to maple. That's primarily what they were using. So this one's got some beautiful wood. It's also an SJ200, and you can see the same early pick guard. And it's a white label that they had on the very early ones.
The sides are all
The
flaming.
sides are
It's
beautiful.
ridiculous.
Doesn't have the script logo, went to the later, more advanced logo there.
So the
and-
very early ones were the rosewood, and then they went to maple.
Then they went to maple.
Okay.
And they changed the logo a little bit, and, there was a few little small differences in the bridge and things like that.
Right.
And then eventually, in the end of '53, they went to what's known just as the J200. This one is around in 1956. This is an orange label. This is a blonde finish, and it's maple. And again, a beautiful guitar. Pickguard is slightly different from the SJ200.
Right.
And, but, still in the same ultra fancy,
Right.
Again, the bridge and all that. Just a stunning guitar. This is more associated with like Elvis.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So again, this was their top of the line at the time. And so it kind of evolved into this. And then there was a number of other things down the road where they started making other minor changes to the guitar. Then they went to the Pneumatic Bridge, which was, where you had individual string.
What year did they do that?
That one was done On the J200s, I think around the end of 61.
Okay.
So sometimes you'll see a 61 that has the fixed bridge. Sometimes you'll see them that have the
Pneumatic.
Pneumatic.
Yeah.
And the Pneumatic, has these screws on the side. It adds a little more weight to the guitar.
Right.
Generally, they're not quite as desirable, but I've played some that are really great guitars. We have a
Yeah.
63 in the back that's about as clean as this guitar. Sounds terrific.
Yeah.
Really good guitar. So, but these guitars were for people who really wanted to make a statement. They
Right.
wanted something that was just absolutely gorgeous.
Big and bold.
The first thing is the shock of looking at it. Second of is
Well, everyone
sound.
remembers the Elvis thing. I mean, him and his J200. That was
Absolutely.
like iconic, really, wasn't it? Yeah.
So, so this was for the uptown
It's top of
artists
the
who
line.
looked like they
Yeah.
were doing very well at the time. Generally, it wasn't for the poor guys, but occasionally you would see like Reverend Gary Davis or somebody like that
Right.
with some of the early blues guys, but mostly not. It was mostly for people that were pretty successful at the time and could afford. And this guitar, not that it was that expensive in this day and age, but back then it was
It
maybe
was a lot of
$300 or
money. Yeah.
something, and that was a lot of dough
Yeah.
at that particular
It's
time.
a statement guitar, isn't it?
Right.
Really? Yeah.
So, and a lot of guitar players, they want to look good, because the guitar players get the
Goes
girls.
with the job. Yeah, yeah.
So, so in order to get the girls, sometimes you have the right props. This is one of the right props.
Exactly.
So anyhow, listen, I want to thank you guys
Well, that answers your question.
I want to thank you guys for writing in all these questions. We're going to try to get to as many as we can. The only thing is that some of these questions are so specific to one guitar that it may only interest a few folks. So we want to try to make it roundabout where it's going to appeal to a lot of people. Give you a little history, give you a little fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes we even answer some of the dumb questions that we get, and we're not getting a lot of those. So I want to compliment you guys. We're,
Yeah,
we're
we're
actually
not getting
dealing
enough.
with a lot of people that actually are not brain dead.
Yeah.
But there are a few. So, thanks
So keep
for
them coming.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and thanks for the response, guys. I really appreciate it. We love you all. We want to get back to you, and we want to try to answer as many of these questions as we can.